Welcome back to Retro Wednesday, the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike. I want to take a break from reviewing Silverhawk's Wave 2 to do a retro video discussion I've been thinking about for a while now. It is the concept of market movers when it comes to the vintage toy line and modern toy lines based on vintage concepts. Now, do influencers actually affect the market? Do they move the market? Do companies, do resellers, do collectors move the market? We're going to talk about this. And don't worry, I got a lot more Retro Wednesday video collection videos coming, like Biker Mice, Crystar, Police Academy, a bunch of crazy stuff. But let's talk about market movers coming up. First off, I want to talk about some influencers. I'm going to just hit on some of the bigger influencers on YouTube because I really only deal with YouTube, not all the other crazy stuff that's out there. But Sharpness Prime has been touted as the biggest toy tuber out there. He may not actually have the most subscribers, but does he have the influence and pull to be a market mover? Now, I would say yes and no. Yes, he can get a lot of people excited about something, or a lot of people turned off about something. But the fact that he talks mostly about Marvel Legends, and he talks about toy lines that have massively high production numbers, that making a movement in the market because of that, having people run out and buy these. Well, there's so many available, so many places you can get them. It's not like it's that big of a deal. So really, I don't think Sharpness, and not that it gives him, but anybody that generally is talking about these large production number, production quantity items isn't going to impact it hardly at all. So when you get into vintage YouTubers, Retroblasting is one of the bigger names in the vintage YouTubers. And he does a great job, great channel, fantastic. Him and Melinda do a fantastic job. Now, is he a market mover? Now, it's interesting, too, because he actually was accused of pumping up the vintage market so he can get more out of selling his stuff that is extras. And I've never seen that go on. I've never seen any evidence of that. But does he actually move markets? And I'm going to say yes, but only for a short period of time. Ultimately, when he makes a video talking about any retro toy line, it just sort of reminds people that it exists. And in some cases, even with this Bionic 6 one, where he was very negative on the toy line for the most part overall, and negative on the show, people still got excited and went out and bought it. I watched it when it came out, and then I looked online and I saw that it seemed like an uptick in sales for a couple of days on these items, and it went back to about normal. I think that's to be said about all of the bigger YouTubers that are out there, such as Toy Galaxy, who changed their name to Secret Galaxy or whatever going on there. And so with that, when they put out their videos, their retrospectives or histories of something, well, it does generate a bit of a buzz and excitement surrounding whatever particular toy line that they've just made a video about. It's kind of exciting, it's kind of fun, and it's interesting to see they are market movers for a short period of time. You can't really talk about influencers that make an impact without talking about, well, good old Pixel Dan. Pixel Dan is seriously deep into Masters of the Universe, and he's been invited to panels and stuff like that. But people do want his opinion whenever it comes to anything with Masters of the Universe. They're just look to hear what he has to say and all that kind of stuff. But is he a market mover? Well, maybe he was a market mover even without even trying to be. Now, they say there's no such thing such as bad press, but when Pixel Dan gets two of the exact same figure with two of the exact same problems and breakage on them, then that's kind of crazy. According to this, it broke right out of the box or something along those lines. But with that, I don't think he intended to be negative on this, but this was repeated by so many people, I can't even give you a number. But something like this is having influence. Not only does Pixel Dan try to have a positive impact and a positive influence, but he does kind of show these things, and it comes with a negative. So sliding right into that, influencers got really excited about this Eternia. They got around this Eternia. And when it comes to these big projects, influencers could influence whether or not these exist. Whether or not these big projects make it into reality. These projects that require a lot of people to put up a lot of money, and influencers getting excited about it, such as the Pixel Dan and the Geek Dad Lives. And I might have put a little bit towards it, but even with that, Did it make an impact? Well, I actually think it did. I think it put us over the mark, and without all of the influencers as a whole, these projects might not have made it over the mark. Same thing with the Ghost Rider. Influencers were not on board with this. Influencers were against this because of the price point. They didn't feel that the value was there. I just had no interest in it whatsoever. But with all of that, this thing failed. It did not have the support of the influencers who actually do move markets when it comes to this kind of stuff. Next, we get into the company's impact and are they market movers? You would think a company can be a market mover like Hasbro or Mattel or them. And with that, I really thought, I thought if they were going to remake all of the vintage figures on vintage card backs, that it was going to hurt the vintage market. But it seems like it helped the vintage Star Wars market. When they made these Star Wars figures, it seemed like it got more people excited to go out and actually buy the vintage figures. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense, but it sort of does. Because there's a lot of people that don't want a fake replacement item such as this. They want the real deal, real thing. Personally, I'd just be fine with a fake replacement item. One of the problems with Hasbro or any of these companies doing these retro lines is they do the retro lines for so long, and then the deeper they go, the less fan interest and support there is, so they stop or they slow down. And in the case of these retro collection Star Wars figures, they're putting out figures they came up with last year or 2 years ago instead of putting out the rest of the 96 that they should be doing. They started something, but they're not finishing it. So they're really good at not finishing stuff that they start. With this, and I got another example, I would barely say that they barely started with Ghostbusters. Now, I am not a Ghostbusters fan at all. I did not care about the Ghostbusters line, but see them on the toy aisle, day in, day out, I went ahead and picked up a set, and then I picked up the Ghost, and then I started getting excited, not about the Ghostbusters, but about the Ghosts themselves. And I had never heard of the Fearsome Flush, or whichever one that one was, and so I started getting interested in it, and now I've probably got about 20 of the Ghosts from the Kidder line, because they stopped this. But they generated interest in me and a whole lot of other people that wasn't there before. They are market movers, but they love to start stuff and not finish it. Why did they give us more of this line? Not the whole line. Half the line? So Mattel puts out Masterverse figures based on the cartoon. Now, the show was an issue because a lot of people didn't like the show. So the Revelations. And with that, they start making figures based on that, and they don't sell well, really. The first wave or two, the first wave, once a case hit a store, it might have sold out to one collector. But then as time went by, they started to pile up in the store. And so with that, I believe it's the designs. I believe that it just didn't look classic enough. And I think this actually drove people into the arms of actual classic figures and avoiding these figures. Oh, until they went to $9 on clearance. Now, the other thing that they can do is give collectors what they want, for the most part. Most of these figures are what collectors want. And when you do that, they sell well. They sell out. This is a quick picture I found from Toy Habits. They have a web page and a YouTube channel. Great content. And they're always on top of stuff. Like they find stuff out before I even have any clue it's a thing. So it's a lot of fun. They're on breaking, cutting edge of this stuff. But with that, a sorceress, getting a sorceress that's a nice looking sorceress, looks different than classics, and you don't have to spend $200 on a classics one. And so this is kind of what collectors were wanting. They're going in that direction. They're satisfying demand, but it's a little bit too little, a little bit too late, and these are being produced in such low quantities that they're going to be hard to get. So next we kind of get into collectors, and how do collectors move the market? Are collectors market movers themselves? And yes and no. But mostly yes. The thing about it is, can one individual collector go out and affect the G.I. Joe market? Well, in 2020, I would say yes. When supply was dwindled down and pretty low, and let's say you were trying to buy a Battle Android Trooper. There was a month where I bought every bat that was under $50. And any bat I could find, I would buy. and I built up a little army of like 7, and I was happy with that little army of 7. But during that month, if it popped up and it was 50, I bought it. So there was no $50 bat popping up on eBay. And after that month, though, other people could get themselves a $50 bat because I was done. I moved on. But with that, can an individual be a market mover? For one little bitty thing, one tiny little thing, probably yes. But probably for a short period of time, unless you're willing to be consistent with that forever. But when it comes to it, though, collectors sort of in a group or an entire group of collectors, yes, they do move markets. And it happens a lot. When The Mandalorian came out with this new ship, they got a Naboo fighter for The Mandalorian. This Naboo fighter was worthless, more or less. So you can get one for 20 or 30 bucks, new in the box almost, maybe 50 new in the box. But it shot up in price when collectors all had the same idea at the same exact time to go pick up an old 90s one for as cheap as they could, but they ran the price up to 100 bucks, and it's still hard to get. And now that we hear it's going to be some crazy 150 or something, 130, $150 price to get the new one, these are still elevated in price because of it. Now, can sellers effectively affect the price of vintage toys? Well, when they had this chilly warehouse find, which I think that's what this is, when they had this warehouse find full of Kenner Mask and other Kenner stuff going on, did that truly affect the price? Well, I think it did sort of bring down the price of sealed and loose vehicles of Mask for a while, but I've also noticed that pretty much everything Mask has fallen in price. See, one of the problems with this whole situation was the fact that it's not like you were getting these things for pennies on the dollar. They were still charging a seriously high price. Like, you're paying over $100 per each of these vehicles, and in some cases, these sealed vehicles were being opened up by customs, so you no longer have a sealed vehicle. And so with that, they were being bundled in different groups of bundles. You didn't get one of each because they didn't have the exact same number of cases of each vehicle and figure and all that kind of stuff. So with it, it was kind of a strange situation. I don't think they've fully depleted all of the product, and I'm sure there are people sitting on them waiting to sell them 10 years from now. So there's a whole lot of factors that go into this Chilean find here, where there's like 30,000 vehicles and figures brand new sealed in the package. It affected the market a little bit, but I think the overall situation is that all of Mask has seemed to drop a little bit in price and value over the last year and a half. Another thing that a seller could do is they could flood the market themselves. A single seller sat around and flooded the market with 12 of these Helens at the same exact time, just listed them all, which I thought was very strange that somebody A, had 12 Helens, but B, listed them all at the same time. They flooded the market and really just drove the price down on their own product they're trying to sell, which is really strange. It's really weird. But when you come to the vintage market, where sometimes a really rare item, there's only 1 or 2 on eBay at a time, and you hit it with 12 at once, you're competing against yourself, you're flooding the market, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. But that's what happened in this case, which made it really nice for me to get a cheap carded Helen when I needed one. So I'm curious what you think. Have you seen influencers influence the market? Have you seen companies influence the market? Have you seen collectors make an impact and influence market, the market movers that are out there? And ultimately, what does it really matter? What matters is it going to be harder or easier for you to acquire these vintage items that you're looking for in the long run? That's why it's a big point. That's the whole point of this video. And are these market movers making it easier or harder to acquire what we want? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe to your hanger out.